I want to talk to you today about sitting in a chair. I work with a lot of people who come to me and they spend a lot of time sitting in their chair at work or at home on their computer, and they often tell me that they're sitting there and they feel that they're so hunched over and so slumped and their head is so forward and their shoulders are so tense, and they say that they try and sit up straight and they try and push it, but then it doesn't really last and they forget. And so very often I end up giving a talk like this to people, and I thought, well, why not just talk to the camera and show all of you, because I think this should hopefully become common knowledge someday. So I think one of the first things I want to say is that it's very common that when people are sitting in a chair, they sit with their pelvis tucked way under them. So you can see my buttocks is tucked under me, my pelvis is tucked, and so I'm sitting back this way. And now in this situation, if I try to sit up straight, I think, oh man, I'm so hunched over, I have such bad posture, I gotta sit up straight. And then if I try and sit up straight, I might be able to get there, but it takes so much muscular effort. And if you sit up straight in this way, then you're probably going to overwork your muscles in your back, maybe your mid-back or your upper back, and it probably won't feel so great for your lower back either. So what I'm going to let you know now is that the foundational thing you need to do for sitting properly in a chair is to access your pelvis and learn how to sit on the center of your sitting bones. And so instead of being in this tucked position, it's really good to actually grab onto the flesh here. It might feel weird to do that if you've never done that before, but grab onto the flesh and start to pull the flesh of your buttocks back so that you can move your pelvis into a vertical position, so that your pelvis is perpendicular to the floor instead of being parallel with the floor. And so you start to pull the sitting bones, and if you reach under here, you can feel that you have these bones in there. That's the bottom of your pelvis. Those are your sitting bones. So you can pull this flesh back and actually change. You're going to rotate the position of your pelvis. You're going to change the position of your pelvis, moving this bony structure in this way, and then adjust both sides. And so once you're here and you've adjusted the pelvis and you're sitting on your sitting bones, you don't want to be too far forward on your sitting bones. If you're a pretty flexible body in certain ways, it might be easy to overdo it. You want to find the center of your sitting bones and see how that feels. And it's really in this context that the spine and the trunk can start to be lifted in a natural way without muscular effort. So in this position of the pelvis, the spine can find its natural curves. The lumbar curve is present in a healthy way, and in this way the chest can be open and the shoulders will rest on your rib cage in a way that's much healthier and much different than if your pelvis is tucked and your back is rounded. So the beginning is in your sitting bones, and of course it's good to sit more on the edge of the chair and make your legs parallel and get your feet grounded as well. And so this is really the foundation for dealing with rounded shoulders, for dealing with an anterior or forward head carriage. And so here you are to explore where is a neutral pelvis and how can my skeleton and the way of organizing my skeleton actually help me sit upright without exhausting muscles, without creating more soreness and more pain. Another really important factor to think about here is the abdomen. A lot of us become very contracted and tight in the abdomen, and as we start to rotate the pelvis differently, it's going to maybe bring you in touch with other tension that you have in your body, and so that will be a process to work with that. But when you sit on the center of the sitting bones and there is this length that comes in the trunk, see if you can also invite a sense of length and relaxation and freedom in the belly. Not to let the belly hang out and forward, but to find a different way to exist in your belly, which is not short and contracted, but which has some length and which is free from rigidity. And so this position will also allow for this space to come in your trunk, which is going to help open and deepen your breath, which is going to give space to your abdominal organs and your digestive system, and which actually is going to increase the blood flow to your brain and help you think better and help you be alive to your fullest potential. One of the challenges to this is that adjusting the pelvis in that way, bringing the pelvis from the tucked position into this more neutral, healthy position where you're sitting on your sitting bones, this actually isn't so easy for a lot of people. And the reason for that is there's often a lot of muscular tightness, particularly in the hamstrings and the buttocks and in the thighs and in the lower back and in the fascia of all these areas, that there's so much tightness there and shortness in muscles that actually moving the pelvis in that way is difficult. The pelvis is actually restricted and immobilized in a sense. And so for some people, there's a very important prerequisite period where you have to just focus on freeing the tissue in the areas that are restricting the pelvis from being able to make this shift. And for many people, what's really important is to free up and open the hamstrings and the groins. The hamstrings attach from the back of the knee way up into those same sitting bones. And so if this muscle is very short and tight, there's going to be a profound tug on the sitting bones, pulling them down and under. And the same with the groins. And so lengthening and freeing up the hamstrings and groins will give that facility to the pelvis to be able to adjust and shift. And when the pelvis has that mobility and freedom, it also has the chance to find its own happiest placement in the body. That neutral pelvis, both in standing and sitting, is something that our bodies know. And that deep intelligence is able to come through and express itself in the absence of contraction and tension. So dealing with lengthening, dealing with shortness, opening and freeing the fascia and muscles to mobilize the pelvis so that you can make that adjustment in the pelvis for the rest of your trunk to be upright. This is really the way to work with finding better posture in your seat.